Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. My name is Gianna Mori. I'm the Student Program Advisor in the Career Center at Santa Barbara City College. We welcome all of you to the second best series, the second out of 3. We had one on February 8th and it was just fantastic. I expect this one to be equally as informative and wonderful. The previous event was recorded, as is this one, and is posted on the Career Center Video Library webpage. This one will also be posted there in the coming days, not too far from now. So if you want to share it with other people or see it again, you're welcome to view it on our website. The first session had Judge Von DeRoyen, who is also here with us today. She's the brainchild of the BEST series, and she will be sharing with us about the BEST series and what it is and what it means to her, and the focus on the legal careers and opening up the doors to diverse individuals for this career, these careers and these professions, which is so important. You'll be hearing today about how important it is based on our wonderful speakers that we have today. I'd like to give a little shout out to Christina McGuire from the Career Center as well. She's our internship coordinator. Our wonderful instructor from Justice Studies, Dave Saunders. And then Christina Urena, who is the director of EOPS, who is not able to be here today, was also instrumental in helping to make this event happen. So I just want to give a little shout out to everybody. Lastly, please put all of your questions in the Q&A at the end of the event. We will have Christina read out your questions and pose them to the panelists. With this, I'd like to go ahead and turn the webinar over to Judge DeRoyen to introduce the BEST program and panelists.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for the second BEST series presentation. Again, thank you to Santa Barbara City College professors, and staff for putting together this program and doing much of the work. So if you missed the first series or the first presentation, I created this series to bring legal professionals that are working, living in your community to the students so that you can meet them and see that there are attorneys and judges who are just like you, who look like you, may have come from the same background, have gone through the same struggles that you might be going through now, to show you that there is absolutely a path to success, and also just bring awareness and exposure to legal professionals so that if you weren't sure that this is what you wanted to do, maybe this will help you make the decision. So today we have Jess McHarrie. They are a deputy public defender from Santa Barbara County. Counselor McHarrie is a champion for their clients, those who are charged with criminal offenses. They handle a wide range of cases, everything from murder cases to clients who are going through treatment court, suffering from mental illness. They are a UK transplant and a fairly new US citizen. I'm so grateful to Jess for taking time out of their busy schedule to join us today and tell us about their path. And then we have the Honorable George Eskin. Judge Eskin is retired. He served as a Superior Court judge here in Santa Barbara County. He works more than any full-time person working that I know as a retired judge. He sometimes comes back and helps us here at the Santa Barbara Superior Court as a visiting judge from time to time. Judge Eskin is a champion of diversity and has tirelessly advocated for the appointment of women and people of color to the bench. He has mentored countless number of individuals, people in their legal careers, including an appellate court justice who tells me all the time that Judge Eskin was his and is his mentor. And Judge Eskin is my mentor and someone I call all the time for advice, probably much more than he would like me to call him. So thank you to Counselor McHarrie and Judge Eskin for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here today. So Councilor McHarrie, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, let's see if I can do the technical portions. Okay. Okay. Is that, I can't tell if that's being shown, but I think it is.
You can see it.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. I am Jess. I am a deputy public defender here in Santa Barbara County and have been for the past 5 years. The topic of the talk is interesting. It's like the hurdles, barriers, and obstacles that I faced to get to this legal career, and I've had a few. And so really, it's to discuss like how I got from this sweet, not even 2-year-old curly head self with a ridiculous full name to the still curly head me, but drastically older and with less names. And the reality is that even from a young age, I never felt like I kind of fit in or I belonged. And that's, but before we get into the obstacles that I've faced, it's important to quick do a geographical bio, because I have a somewhat unique upbringing, and perhaps that is why I've always felt a wee bit different. Firstly, I was born in Granada, Spain. You could tell by the accent, and yeah, that's me, 6 months old, and that was a period in my life that was similar to many of my clients, in that I grew up in a very violent home where there was addiction. And in fact, my mom and I ended up leaving Spain because of the violence and abuse she suffered at the hands of my father. And that decision on her part led me to be dragged in tow as she basically scampered around the world trying to, lose herself. So I also lived in WAIHEKE, New Zealand for a little bit. And that's, me wearing a dress. It wouldn't happen again after that for a while. But I lived in New Zealand for a couple of years. And the problem that my family was seeing, the family that my mom was still in contact with, I had not gone to school yet. And in fact, I didn't go to school, didn't have formalized schooling up until the age of about 10. And so my aunt very sweetly told my mom that if, she needs to go to school, otherwise she's going to be an idiot. So I've always been kind of a bit of the black sheep in the family. And so what ended up happening is that I then moved to Blackpool, England, which, if you don't know Blackpool, you're missing out. It's a unique town in the north of England that everybody in the UK knows. And I was raised there from approximately the age of 10 when I started going to school. And I was raised by my grandparents, Margaret and Dennis. And it's Margaret and Dennis who I really give all the credit to for where I've strike that. They are the reason that I never lost hope on myself. They instilled in me this sense that I can do whatever I want and I can be whatever I want. And I did not have the easiest time growing up. The seasons of my youth were stormy at best in high school. I mean, look at me. I was a theater geek. Yes, that is me as the Cowardly Lion. And I was relentlessly bullied because I looked like a boy, because I was a Spaniard, because my grandparents were raising me. And so I didn't have the happiest of high school. And, being a theater geek, I desperately wanted to go to drama school. And my sweet gran, Margaret, she told me, darling, acting is a hobby. And she instilled in me the importance of education. And the reason was so I never had to rely on anyone else and I could always support myself, which was pretty wise of her, honestly. And she is actually the individual who planted the seed as to why don't you become a trial attorney in the US? Because it's basically like acting. And I kind of was like, okay, so that's what I did. So I was like, that's what I had my heart set on, trial attorney in the US. I won't go into all the nuance why I became a public defender. If somebody wants to ask me, I can tell you a very unriveting story. Well, it's kind of cool, but anyway. So what ended up happening then is that I went and got my master's in American studies, because how else do I show my love of this country besides getting an advanced degree? And I was in Scotland, and a part of my master's was to do a year abroad in, I got Allentown, Pennsylvania, which you would have thought that might have deterred me from coming to this country, but it wasn't. I actually met my very first girlfriend there. And after we graduated from our respective unis, we basically would travel back and forth from the States and England, work under the table jobs, and then we went backpacking around Europe for about a year and a half. It was at that point, the dream, the plan came into place. And I decided that I was going to take the LSAT, I was going to go to law school, and I was going to be a public defender. And so in August 2005, which is in fact the last time I was out of this country, as it turns out, I made the trip from Manchester, England to JFK, where I lived in Long Island, New York, with my girlfriend and her family, my then girlfriend and family. And I went to school. But you're like, wait a minute, Jess. That's a paralegal associate. That's not a law degree. No, it is not, because standardized tests in me, don't do well. And so my LSAT score was not great. And so the East Coast schools that I had applied to, I got rejected from. And so I had to, life lesson, I had to reformulate the plan, which is I wanted to be in this country, so I needed to get into a school that I could get a student visa for. And so I did my paralegal associates, and with your F1 student visa, you get a year of basically work experience at the end of it. So I figured in that year, I will retake the LSAT, I'll reapply to law school, and I'll get in. So I finished the paralegal associate, became a paralegal, and then actually my then missus and I, we drove cross country to San Diego. And that relationship did not survive, because my theory is that any relationship that you move to San Diego with just is not going to survive. So, however, before my LSAT score expired, I applied to schools on the West Coast, and I got into Cal Western, yeah. So I ended up going to California Western School of Law in San Diego, and it was, firstly, I went older, and I was an older student in life. I've been putting my age in parentheses because I know I look very young, but I'm actually a bit older than most people think. And I say that because it doesn't really matter what age you start your journey on, right? But law school I loved law school, but I learned very quickly that I was not going to be at the top of my class. I realized that I bring other things to the table besides, my brains. But it was tough because I had to get because I was a foreigner, I had to get private loans, and not just private loans, I had to get private loans that I had to repay whilst I was in law school, which made zero sense to me. And when I tried to speak to Sally Mae about it, they just didn't really seemingly care. So it meant that I had to work. Since I've always worked, I had to work 2 research assistant jobs. I worked at the law school library, and I had to sleep sleep in someone's garage. I had to sleep in, like things were tight and things were not, I did not have family support because sweet Dennis and Margaret, they died when I was first year of uni. And so with their death ended any people in my family that actually, thought that I could be something. So it was a struggle to get through law school, a struggle to actually get through being able to pay for my bills. And I got 6 figures worth of debt at the end of it. And I graduated law school. And then I had the realization, I had 1 year from the date of my graduation to not only take and pass the bar, first time, failure was not an option. I had to pass the first time, because I also needed to find an employer who was going to sponsor me for a work visa, because, and it was stressful. I mean, it was stressful. It was extremely stressful because I had made this huge gamble, this huge bet, 6-figure bet that somehow I could make this work. And if I didn't, I was going to end up going back to the UK with 6 figures worth of debt and a law degree that doesn't mean diddly nothing in the UK. And because I had to go on this path, I couldn't go do the things that I wanted to do. So even though I wanted to be a public defender, I couldn't go post bar at the San Diego Public Defenders. I had to go an alternative route because I needed someone to sponsor me for a work visa. And luckily, I was, a lot of what's happened, I think, is luck. I think it's all about timing. And I did find an attorney, Jerry Singleton, who he was in civil practice. I did contract work for him, and he made a boatload of money when he sued the power company for the wildfires in 2007 in San Diego. So I went to him and was super nervous. I had my pitch already. And his response was, yeah, sure. And I was like, really? That's it? You're going to sponsor me? And he was like, yeah. He was like, the only condition is that in the future, when you can, you pay it forward. And so within a year and a half of me then going to an immigration attorney who told me, well, actually, you have a bunch of degrees, so you could actually get sponsored, not just for a work visa, but for a green card, which I lost my mind when I heard that. That was something I was not expecting. And so within a year and a half of that, I got my green card. Unfortunately, immigration, I think, were playing games with me because this sweet photo that they put on here was not the photo that I had submitted with that application. But so I had my green card, which meant not only did I not have to stay in civil litigation, which I hated, I could now open up my own criminal defense, open up my own practice. I was of counsel to a more experienced attorney, and then I did contract work. And I did that for a couple of years whilst I tried to get my foot in the door at a public defender's office, which is extremely difficult when you are not a citizen. In fact, San Diego does not hire if you're not a citizen. So I ended up volunteering whilst I'm in private practice at the Riverside Public Defenders. And that's how I got my foot in the door. And from the Riverside Public Defenders, even when I interviewed with them, even I had a green card, they didn't accept me at first. In my first interview, I did not get the job. I was gutted. I thought, it was what I wanted to do, be a public defender. And another life lesson I learned is that you just don't give up, right? So I didn't get the job. I still volunteered. And then eventually like a temporary position came along. And that's how they actually then hired me then. And then, so I did a couple of years at the Riverside Public Defenders. And then I transferred to Santa Barbara because Tracy McCougar was coming here. And I hadn't had the opportunity to work for her in Riverside and had heard nothing but amazing things. So when she said, hey, you want to come to Santa Barbara? I was like, uh-huh. So I came to Santa Barbara, and as was said earlier, I became a citizen. So 5 years after I got my green card, at the ripe old age of 38 years old, I finally, and over 14 years later, I finally became a citizen. And I have to tell you, that grin on my face was on my face for hours. I mean, my face hurt afterwards. Even with staff at the Pasadena Convention Center were like, wow, you're really happy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really happy, because I don't think until you go through the immigration process and you're in this country, not as a citizen, I don't think you understand the stress that you carry day in, day out. Meaning I could be sent back to the UK where I had no family, no friends anymore, with this degree that doesn't matter over there. And so it was an amazing, I mean, being a citizen has really reduced my stress level. And I haven't really gotten too much into the fact that during my journey, I decided that, I didn't decide, but rather I never felt that back to the beginning, I never felt like I fit in. And I even included being gay. And San Diego has an amazing gayborhood. But like, I still never felt that I was gay. I didn't feel like I was quite a boy. I didn't feel like I was a girl necessarily, because sometimes like I have girlish qualities, I have boyish qualities. So, which is why I call myself a good boy. But I realized that like, wait, I don't want to be Miss or Mrs. or like, and so that's when I also saw how gender can be weaponized in the courtroom, and I appear like this. And so when someone tries to, and so what that looks like, what I mean by being weaponized is the way I dress is very, gender queer. And certain individuals in court would call me Miss McHarrie, as though trying to like get under my skin, because, you may wear all the boy clothes, but you're still a Miss. And I did not like that. I do not like, the focus should be on the litigation and the representation of the client, not my perceived gender. And so that's when I made a decision that I actually wanted to be referred to as Counselor McHarrie, and that my preferred pronouns were they and them. What have I learned? I've learned mainly to be kind, to be curious, and to be yourself, because everybody else is taken, so you might as well be yourself. And you will get knocked down in life, and you will have naysayers, and you will have people telling you you can't do that. Some of those people will be people you don't even know. Some of those people will be people that you loved and thought had your back. But life is not linear. And even till you get knocked down, you got to keep going. And sometimes things take a really, really, really long time, as demonstrated by all these IDs. I mean, all these various IDs that I've collected since being in this country for over 14 years. And other lessons that I've learned is that don't label people. Leave your labels for your jars at home or for your office, for your items in your office, so your colleagues don't nick your things. And also, I learned a really important lesson in law school. One of my favorite professors said to me, he said to the class, your reputation as an attorney starts today. Look around you. These are your colleagues. So your reputation begins today. And so I realized that people rarely remember what you said or did, but how you made them feel. So remember that. The people you're in school with today, they're gonna remember you. I remember some of the fools from law school. I'm like, nope, never give that. I would never refer them to anyone. So start today. If you want to be a professional, any profession, not even legal, your reputation starts right now, okay? And then the other thing is, you need on your journey friends and family. And if you're like me and don't have made a decision not to have your biological family in your life anymore, you have a chosen family. Pick them, like choose wisely and rely on your friends. And if they're friends who are furry, like my little Rio there, that's what you need in life. The company of a few choice friends, preferably with fur, I say. And surround yourself with people that motivate you and inspire you to be better than you are, okay? Because that's how you will get better. And finally, the number one thing I've learned from my all-time favorite queen is, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you gonna love somebody else? Can I get an amen? And it is so true. Like when you start believing in yourself, amazing things start happening and amazing people come into your life, because you attract what you put out there. And makes me sound super hippy dippy Californian, but I really believe in karma, and you've got to put out good energy. And yeah, thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you so much, Jess. All right, Judge Eskin, it's all you.
Well, thank you. I have to follow that. I mean, honest to goodness, I am blown away by Counselor McHarrie's presentation.
Thank you.
And the message that she sent and the unconventional approach she took, the course that she took to where she is today. But I do want to start with what she said, because I think it's a very important message. Your reputation is the most important thing you have. And I don't think I would have thought to refer to that in my presentation, but I want to emphasize that. Your reputation for integrity, your reputation for being able to maintain confidences, your reputation for loyalty, all of those values are so important. And I appreciate Jess mentioning that at the end, because I think that's something that all people should be aware of as they embark on professional careers. Judge Von der Royen, Elizabeth Diaz, Jess McHarrie, and the others who participated in this BEST program created by Judge der Royen represent the face of the Santa Barbara legal community going forward. And I'm honored that this dinosaur of the past has been invited to be here. 10 years ago, I was much more confident in my ability to serve as a mentor. I could relate experiences throughout my life and the lessons I learned with the hope that other people would find them relevant and consider how they might apply to their lives. However, a lot has changed during the past 10 years. Millennials born between 1981 and 1996, and Gen Z born between 1997 and 2012 have had a profound impact on our world. And I now question whether my life experiences remain relevant to them. I'm grateful for having lived through the second half of the 20th century with physical comforts that were previously unavailable, as well as access to healthcare advances, travel, information, worldwide communication made possible by technological innovation. But recently, I've looked back to try and understand how we were not more sensitive to the potential negative implications of artificial intelligence, immediacy of information, environmental hazards to our planet's survival. If I were a millennial, I'd be skeptical of lessons to be learned from an 84-year-old retired judge who's been the beneficiary of white privilege and does not understand the resistance to teaching critical race theory. Perhaps most importantly, I was also the beneficiary of parental influences that caused me to respect other human beings, irrespective of their physical appearance, their sexual orientation, their gender identification, their religious beliefs. During the past 60 years, the span of my professional career, we've seen remarkable changes in our culture, changes moving toward a more equitable, inclusive, and just society. When I was in high school, the schools in my hometown were segregated, and the rejection of separate but equal as a constitutional standard in Brown versus Board of Education was not implemented until 3 months following my graduation from high school in September 1955. When I left home for college that fall, I didn't have a clue about my future. 3 years later, in early September 1958, I had a very significant experience I want to share with you. My father had died very suddenly at age 50 in June of 1958. I was 20 years old. My mother did not want to remain a widow in our small hometown of Cumberland, Maryland. She wanted to move back to California and live with an aunt and uncle with whom we'd live while my father served overseas in World War II. And I transferred after 3 years of college to UCLA. Well, I had hoped to transfer. I sent in my application that, remember, between June and September is not a very long period of time, but I got the papers together, I got letters together, had my transcript sent. And when I got to Los Angeles, I had not yet heard from UCLA. I was trying to transfer from the Carnegie Tech drama department in Pittsburgh to the UCLA Department of Theater Arts, which was my major, or hoped to be my major. Anyway, the day before classes were to begin at UCLA, because I read about it in the newspaper, I hadn't heard from the admissions office, so I went there to the Westwood campus. And I went to the Dean of Admissions office. I presented myself to the woman behind the counter, and she went to a file cabinet. That's where documents are kept. And she came back to the counter and said to me, "I'm sorry, Mr. Eskin, you've not been accepted." I was in a state of shock. I did not know what to do. I suppose I could have returned to Pittsburgh and finished up at Carnegie Tech. My cousin had told me there was an excellent drama department at something called Santa Monica City College. I was absolutely stunned. I wasn't used to being rejected. And the woman behind the counter saw that I needed help. And she said to me, "I think the admissions director is in his office, and I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you about your application." So I stood there for a moment and made what turned out to be the most critical decision in my life. I decided, what did I have to lose? I might as well go in and speak to him. I wasn't at all optimistic that I'd be able to change the decision, but I'd been rejected. So I was introduced to a gentleman whose name is Edgar Lazier. And he sat down with me and went through my application, went through the documents. I was able to point out a few things in there that had not been interpreted correctly. And when I left, he said, "I'll take up your application with the admissions committee this afternoon." I went home without any expectation that I would get a favorable result. But the next day in the mail, my packet arrived and I had been admitted. And the admissions committee had decided to take a chance with me. And for every semester thereafter, my grades soared in the theater arts department. I got straight A's, I was on the dean's list. Every semester when my grades came, I wrote to Mr. Lazier, thanked him for his reconsideration, and appreciated the fact that he had given me that opportunity. And it really made an awfully important difference in the way my life evolved, because after UCLA, I went to New York and studied theater for a while, worked in the entertainment industry, was motivated to go to law school for reasons completely unrelated to how I've spent my 60+ year career in criminal law as a prosecutor, defense attorney, and judge. But that's another story if someone wants to ask. But I did go to law school at UCLA, and my undergraduate work there was influential in getting me in. And when I graduated from the UCLA School of Law in 1965, there were only 7 women in my class of 250 students. And I went to work as a deputy district attorney in Ventura, where there were no women prosecutors among the 25 attorneys. 10 years later, when I came to work as the assistant district attorney in Santa Barbara, there were no women prosecutors. In fact, there were no women judges, no people of color in any elected offices. People whose sexual orientation was other than heterosexual were hiding in closets and afraid to come out. And that's why I say, looking back over the past 60 years, I think we've made incredible progress in some aspects of our society. Now, Judge DeRoyan has asked me to emphasize the importance of mentorship, which from your perspective involves identifying someone you admire and respect who will be willing to advise and guide you and offer suggestions and insights based on their experience. I hope when I'm finished speaking that you'll have questions and won't hesitate to ask. That is the essence of establishing a relationship with a potential mentor, asking questions. That shows that you're inquisitive. That shows you want to learn. That shows you acknowledge the fact that you have a lot to learn. There are so many opportunities in the legal profession that many of them that do not require a law degree. Many of them that do not require going to law school or even taking the bar exam. What you need to ask yourself, I think, is what's important to you? What do you want to do with your life? How do you want to make your community a better place? And in the legal profession, I encourage people to go to law school, not because they will pass the bar and become lawyers, but because law school teaches a method of critical thinking that will help you wherever you go, whatever you do in your community and in your family and in your life. And I have found the experience of law school to be so helpful in many different venues. In 1980, I took a motorcycle trip across the country, and there was a television show that I was influenced by called Then Came Bronson. And I was in Kalispell, Montana one week, made some friends there, and attended a union meeting one evening. And the conversation was going all over the place with the issues that they had. And I asked the people who had invited me to come with them if I could ask them questions. I raised my hand and I asked some questions about this and that, and I don't know what, but it helped them focus on what their real problems were, and it helped them develop answers. And that's what law school helps you do. It's a way of developing a skill of critical thinking that enables you to approach problem solving by asking questions. You don't necessarily know the answers, but people around you may, and the questions may cause them to think about resolution of problems. I've probably talked enough, Judge DeRoyan. I'm happy to continue talking or to start inviting questions.
Thank you. Well, we can take questions. But I do have one question for you, Judge Eskin, which is, what's your suggestion for students who are seeking a mentor? How would you go about trying to get and find a mentor if you're a student?
Well, I think opportunities are presented at school with speakers, guest speakers who come in. That's one way. I think that you just have to identify somebody who you think has something to offer and introduce yourself. You have to take that first step. You have to step up. You have to extend your hand or your elbow, and you have to introduce yourself. And you have to express interest in the subject matter and present yourself as somebody who's inquisitive and wants to learn. And the only way you're going to learn, other than reading, the only way you're going to learn from another person is to ask questions and not be afraid that the questions are stupid or ignorant. You just ask questions. Never hesitate to ask, why do we do this? Why do we do that? And expect to get answers that are intelligible.
Thank you. So Christina or Jenna, I'm not sure who's going to ask the questions, but if you want to start.
Of course. First of all, thank you, Judge Eskin and Counselor McHarrie, for sharing your stories. You're so inspirational. And Judge Eskin, you were just talking about asking questions, and we do have a few questions that were in the chat box, but I encourage everyone, if you want to put them in the Q&A feature, that's an anonymous too, so you can always put questions in there. But one of the first questions was, is law school a bit easier with paralegal education under your belts?
Yes and no, in that you understand some of the concepts, but it's the, as Judge Eskin was saying, it's the critical thinking in law school is what is drilled into you in law school. It's but it certainly made me, going to paralegal, doing the associate's degree, definitely confirmed to me though that I want to be a lawyer. So if you're not sure, I think it's a pretty solid, like, put your toe in the water kind of thing to see if you even like being in that kind of environment.
Same for me. I was a paralegal before I went to law school.
Oh,
And yes, and
didn't
I
know
think
that.
it made me a little more comfortable in law school, although it didn't, I think when it came time for contracts and grading, it didn't really help me. But I think that it, like Jess, confirmed to me, this is what I want to do. And it puts you in the realm of attorneys and contact with attorneys, and gets you into the, into the legal profession. So I think that's always helpful.
Well, I would add to that going to a paralegal school is just one thing that you could do. I think any involvement in a law-related profession, any involvement in a law-related activity is going to assist your law school education, support your law school education, and keep you motivated. And I think internships, which were not available when I was in law school, clinical programs were not available when I was in law school, are now proliferating all over the place. So you could seek an internship with legal aid. You could seek an internship with the Superior Court, actually, with the judges. You could seek an internship with the public defender or the district attorney or the city attorney's office, or with any one of a number of government agencies, both county, state, and local. And so anything that can get you into an environment where you're dealing with the kinds of issues that people encounter that ultimately wind up as the subject matter of a lawsuit is going to give you a sense of, is this something I want to do? You might seek an internship with the probation department. You might seek an internship with the police department or the sheriff's department. Anything that's law related that will give you exposure to what lawyers are doing will enhance your understanding of the law school process. When I was in law school, I had a job with an entertainment law firm as a law clerk. And basically I was running errands, but in the process, I was being exposed to the conversation in the office. I was getting exposed to what was going on with regard to the handling of cases and the environment. And what happened was this. I thought I was going to work for that entertainment law firm when I graduated from law school. And one day I went to court with an associate who was appearing for a client's son in a criminal matter in West Los Angeles. And I thought, well, I can do this. And I thought, not only can I do this, I think I'd enjoy doing this. And so what was important to me when I graduated from law school was to learn how to be a trial lawyer. And there were no practical courses at UCLA Law School when I was there about how to be a trial lawyer. There was mock trial, which was, or moot court, which was appellate argument. I wanted to spend time in court, not drafting contracts. And so I decided to get a postgraduate course in trial training. Where's the best place to get a postgraduate course in trial training? In my opinion, the best place to get it is a DA's office. So I went to the district attorney's office and told the DA who hired me, I wasn't interested in being a career prosecutor. I was interested in learning how to try a case. Will you give me 2 years in a postgraduate course? He said, sure. What happened was I got inculcated with the criminal law and spent the next 65 years as a prosecutor, defense attorney, and then judge. But I didn't know that when I started out after law school. I had no idea I was going to be pursuing a career in criminal law.
Thank you all for sharing that. Kind of along those lines, but what advice would you have for someone making a career change later in life?
Absolutely. New chapter. I would encourage that. I see a career change from the law or a career change into the law.
The student didn't specify, but maybe into law, let's say that.
Why not? Think of the wealth of experience that you bring to the practice, the experience of life and children and families and people. I'm sure I would have been a much better lawyer at age 35 with other experience than I was at age 27.
I think it's great when people have career changes later on in life. I think that your life experience gives you a heads up that way. You know, when I see sweet like new PDs come into the office and they just passed the bar and they're like 25 years old, and I'm like, oh my God, your brain isn't even fully online yet. And so I think that there's something about like, you know, here's the thing. We all change throughout life. And so, you know, like our taste buds change every 7 years. 7 years ago, I hated mint and chocolate, and now I'm obsessed with it, right? So like you have to be open to the fact that sometimes things change, and it's not bad, it's not good, it just is. So I encourage it, and I would fall back on like, you know, brainstorm. What are the things that interested you? Also put it out into the universe. Hey, universe, show me something, because I tell you, I get the craziest stuff from the universe when I ask it, including my puppy. So I fully support that. And I think it's exploring, seeing what tickles your fancy and what like really sparks you.
Thank you. Another fantastic question, but what are some of those legal professions that might not require a law degree?
Paralegal. I honestly think court reporters who are absolutely necessary. I mean, you're sat in a courtroom having to listen to attorneys all day, which is a downside, because but I would say clerks in the courtroom, court reporters, paralegals, and actually, you know, within our public defender's office, we actually have a holistic defense team, which includes social workers. And so these are individuals who are embedded in our law firm, but they're helping the most vulnerable clients dealing with like mental health, housing needs. So there's multiple ways you can kind of get into, you know, be in the legal profession where you're not actually an attorney. Oh, investigators. Investigators in the public defender's office or in the DA's office. You know, that's another way you can, you don't need a law degree for that either. I did see a question from Grace. Sorry to put you on blast, Grace. But how to stay motivated through school if you're not top of your class? Not everybody is going to be top of the class. And that sweet professor, Professor Klein, is the professor that came to me in first year during like middle of finals in the library, everyone's studying. And he came up to me and he said, listen, don't forget that you bring something valuable to the table, and never change who you are as a person. Just because you don't get the top grades doesn't mean anything. You just need your first job out of law school. And so the things that I kind of brought to the table is that like I was Prime Minister of Pride Law. I was editor of the student newspaper. I was on an appellate team. And then I brought random cheer to, my peers. Like there are other things you can, if you're good at sports, maybe, if you're volunteering, doing tutoring is another way you could perhaps, but there's more to life than grades, honestly, because once you get your first job, nobody cares about where you went to law school, what your grades were. Nobody cares. Nobody. And if they do care, maybe that's not where the place you want to be. Or maybe it is, if that motivates you, but life is more than grades on a piece of paper. So I wanted to address that, Grace, because it can be tough because people are super competitive. And let them be competitive, and you bring your own special sprinkle to the table.
Thank you for answering that one. Another great question here. Awesome presentation by both of you. Very inspired. As a freshman in college, besides focusing on grades, do you have any specific things we should be doing in our early college career? How do we go about getting an internship, job, gaining experience while in our early undergrad years?
Have fun. Have fun, and don't be stupid though, you know? And you can get an internship. Our office accepts interns. You won't be able, you know, it's about being curious and, like, you know, trying to find your path, because you're going to change. I mean, yeah. You get a hobby that doesn't involve things that require you to be 21 and older.
Judge Eskin, you mentioned mentorship. Is that something that you would recommend for getting an internship and a job and gaining that experience?
Well, mentorship comes. Mentorship comes as a result of relationships that you establish, connections that you make. I'm really taken by almost everything that Jessie has said, because I mean, I really agree with her. If I didn't, I'd tell you that. But it just
I've had judges.
It just seems to me that sometimes undergraduate students worry about, one, what shall I major in to get into law school? And as you can see from our backgrounds, you can major in just about everything. I always encourage people to major in things they enjoy, major in study subjects they enjoy and want to learn more about. I think for law school, we have people who've gone to engineering school who are excellent attorneys, and they do patent law and stuff like that. We have attorneys who, like me, went to theater arts departments. We have attorneys who majored in philosophy and history and political science and government. I think anything that enhances your writing ability is something that's important, something that enhances your ability to read and write and analyze. And I'm going to tell you a story. And then undergraduate students worry about, where do I go to law school? Do I go to the prestigious law schools, to the Harvard, to the Yale, to the Michigan, to the Bolt, now called Berkeley, to UCLA, to Northwestern, to Georgetown? Well, if you've decided you want to go work for a top-notch, high-level corporate law firm in New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, San Francisco, if that's your dream, that's where you go to law school. But I want to tell you a story about our local law school. I'm going to tell you two stories about our local law school, and they both involve young women. One of them is a woman whose name is Kimberly Taylor Crow Gold. Kimberly came to work with me as a paralegal, as a secretary in my Ventura office around 1985, 86. She was a high school graduate. She hadn't gone to college. She never went to college. She entered the Ventura Santa Barbara College of Law, where she was valedictorian of her class, #1 student in her class in almost every subject. And today, this young woman who did not go to college, but she had the innate skill of being able to read, analyze, and write cogently, is the president of the largest independent arbitration mediation service in the world. It's called JAMS, J-A-M-S. And she's a graduate of the Santa Barbara College of Law. And I'm proud that she worked with me for the 4 years she went to law school at night, and was a paralegal, then my associate for several years thereafter. She's not the only one. When I first came to Santa Barbara in 1975, there was a secretary in the district attorney's office whose name was Diane Matzinger, whose name is Diane Matzinger. Diane didn't go to college. Diane was a secretary. Diane went to the Santa Barbara Ventura Colleges of Law, and she is now retired as one of the most successful and profoundly popular appellate attorneys in the country. She's retired in Colorado, but she was a wonderful appellate attorney who not only wrote beautifully, but could stand up and argue before the local court of appeals so effectively. So I'm telling you, even though there were so few women in the legal profession when I started, being a woman is no longer a barrier. Being an ethnic minority, although we're not minorities much longer, is not a barrier. You have every opportunity in the world, and it's only your determination or lack of determination which will make the difference. You can do it, and you can do it through the local law school. You don't have to go to Harvard. You don't have to go to Yale, depending on what you want to do. If you want to give to your community and contribute and feel a sense of satisfaction that you've made the world a better place here at home, you can do it. And I would give you every encouragement to pursue it.
Christina, I know it's 4:58. We should probably wrap up. Any questions that are left unanswered, you can email me at the bestseriessb@gmail.com. I respond to all emails. In fact, I had a City College student contact me about an internship, and she will be interning for me next year. So I would encourage you all to reach out. And I think there was a comment or a question to you, Jess, and hopefully we can get that to you. But before we go, I just want to say we have one last presentation for the year. Please sign up for it. It'll be on April 26th, and we have a UCLA, the Assistant Dean of Admissions or Director of Admissions, Tony Tolbert, and then Jackie Gardina, the Dean of the Santa Barbara Ventura Colleges of Law, so that they'll be here to answer any questions. I'm hopeful it's going to be in person, but please sign up. And to Jess and to Judge Eskin, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with the students today. And I learned a lot about both of you. And Jess, I had no idea. So
can I just say I know people are asking about email address. Yes, you can share my email address with this caveat. I am awful at email. I am awful with emails, not just with colleagues, but with my friends, so if you don't hear from me, don't think, oh God, this is the worst. Just poke me. I need a couple of So by all means, share my email address. If I don't respond, please do not be offended. I get way too many emails every day, and I promise one day you might just get a really random response. And I encourage anyone to just contact the Public Defender's Office if they're looking for an internship.
And share my email address too. And I'm at the opposite end of the spectrum. It's the best way to communicate with me, and you will hear back from me.
thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
So hang on for a little bit. So I would love it if you all would do a survey before you leave. And if you could put up the last slide, Luke, we'd love to hear your feedback. Also, I'll be emailing all of you post-event with Judge Eskin's and Jess McHarrie's contact information, as well as letting you know where we will be posting this recorded video. Thank you so much for the wonderful comments that you had today. So important. Jess, what stood out for me was you have your dream and your goal, and persistence is so important. Your reputation begins today, and choose your friends and family wisely. And I think that echoes Judge Eskin's comments about relationships and building mentors and surrounding yourself with people that will encourage you to be the best person that you are.
Thank you for sharing your time, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Night.